Welcome to Harmonium LA, the podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Heedy Gandolfi, emotional wellness expert, founder of Harmonium LA, and published author. The world needs healing now more than ever. My goal is to bring you inspiring conversations, tips, and techniques that will help you build a sustainable healing toolkit. The Harmonium LA podcast is the only resource you will need to slow down, stop searching, and start healing. Welcome back to another episode of Stop Searching and Start Healing. So my guest today is joining us all the way from Hawaii. She has had an incredible life spanning many different careers, moving from corporate America into now really feeling her soul's calling and working as an intuitive healer and a soul whisperer. So she has a plethora of gifts and techniques and modalities that she pulls from when she's working with her clients, and ultimately really helping them to bring themselves back into a space of balance, serenity, joy, and vitality. So let me just give you a bit of a bio about her, and then we will bring her into the show. And as always, let her do the talking. Trina Gadsden is an evolution and ascension guide, coach, and mentor, helping individuals recover their life's vitality. Through a myriad of intuitive methods, she is able to assist individuals on coming back to their soul's purpose and live a life of radiance and joy. She was put on this earth to help remove the obstacles holding individuals back and connect them to their heart and highest vibration of life possible in their mind, body, and their soul. So let's welcome Trina to the show. Trina, thank you so much for joining us. So thrilled to have you here on the show, all the way from beautiful, magical Hawaii. Aloha.
Aloha. Aloha from the state of Hawaii.
Beautiful. So grateful to have you here, and just really fascinated, honestly, by your whole journey, by your story, by what you have done and went through to where you are right now, and how you really are helping people to implement these healing tools, which of course is what the show is all about, is helping people to build this toolkit of resources and tips and techniques that they can implement into their own lives to help with their own healing journey. So I think this is going to be a really fabulous conversation. I'm really excited for people to hear all about it and see what gifts and techniques and tools you have to offer.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Jessica, again too.
Oh, absolutely. So let's maybe start with your journey, because you went, I was saying in the intro, from corporate America into now, as you say by your own account, to being this change maker and catalyst for people to really create and connect. So what was that journey like? Because I think a lot of people will probably be able to relate to that.
Yeah. So I was always of the mindset, for me, that I'm an experiential learner. And I had also have the mindset that I can do anything. Sometimes not the best mindset to have. I once did a marathon which I didn't train very well, and that was quite painful. But for me, I'm always excited to learn new things. And so corporate America came in just because that's what I wanted to do. I worked for General Motors early on and wanted to be president, until I was like, nope, I guess I don't, and went to other things. And, shift from profit to nonprofit was pretty significant for me, because I was always wanting to assist people and go deep. And for a bit, I remember a time where I was HR director for a group of very big dealerships, and I would interview the lot attendant and the general manager in the same way. And I would ask them to tell me like a defining story that really lets me know who they are. And so I realized I want to go deep with people. And so for me, there was always this I really want to understand how humans work and why. And so my shift to nonprofit was more that I felt that, granted, profit was fun and I was making a difference, but I wasn't making the impact that I wanted to make fully. And so I felt like if I made that shift. And so one of my mother figures, Charlie was her name, had a brain tumor and she was getting ready to leave the world. And I just had a very profound conversation with her around her life. And she had all these regrets, and we went through each one. And I said I would do them as swim with whales, hang with a shaman, do all these things. And so I could do these things for her, but I couldn't keep her on the planet. And so I left right after she passed away, and I was climbing Kilimanjaro, and she showed up, and my field, if you will. And I just got a clear knowing that I needed to make a shift. So at that time I was at JP Morgan, and I left the corporate world and went and got my executive master's in nonprofit leadership and just started being a nonprofit and working in Seattle mostly, but running a nonprofit in Uganda too, in Africa.
And that's just amazing. And such a testament to you, I think, absolutely, but also to be able to honor your friend that way. So I'm guessing how traumatizing that must have been, what a difficult process for you to be with her and to see her leave, and then being able to turn that around into a way that not only honored her wishes. And I think that's a really profound point right there, is like, life's so short. Like,
Right.
if there are things that you want to do them now, because you just don't know what's coming next. And if you have this list, this bucket list of items, this is what I want to do. Climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I mean, wow, number one, amazing, kudos to you. But to create a nonprofit and to start that, because acts of service and giving back are incredibly healing, and I'm a huge advocate for all of those things. So for you to be able to use that, I'm guessing, real deep pain and trauma of losing her, but then being able to, remember her and help you through your healing of that process by doing the things that, you told her you would go and do, is phenomenal. And listening to your intuition and tuning into that.
Definitely. And knowing that I had a difference to make. And if I didn't fully step into that, then I was kind of leading a life that was more the ideal life, if you will, rather than the life that was my true calling. And so that shift allowed me to see, like, there's so many more things we can do. And I think oftentimes we get stuck in this tunnel vision, or a lot of clients that I work with are like, this is the only way. And if I don't, A plus B doesn't equal C, then there's nothing I can do. And there's a whole big world out there. And so I think for me, that was the pivot I needed to see. And after that too, no matter if it was painful, which there was some quite painful lessons in that process, I always thought of Charlie, and she would give anything to be on the planet. And I had not to talk fully on death, but I had another friend years later when I was in the nonprofit field and running executive director of the last nonprofit I ran for 6-something years, and a really good friend of mine. And she passed away, and she was this gorgeous being who would, like, she had extensions. She just was gorgeous. And at that time I was dyeing my hair because it was going gray every 2 weeks. And I was just like, I'm done. Michelle would give anything to be on the planet and have gray hair. What am I doing? And so I shifted kind of my whole mindset around beauty for myself too. And so I don't want anyone else to leave the world for me to get a lesson. And I don't want my friends to leave the world, but I just think that life is short and beautiful, and we can make different choices.
And that's it. Exactly. That is the choices that we choose to make. And sometimes it takes those painful experiences and, God forbid, for someone leaving the world, for us to realize that there is never enough time, and that you really have to do these things, and what is really true to you in your core, in your soul. And that's one of the things that we connected about was, my reason for bringing this show to life was exactly that, was there has to be more. It's not enough to just be seeing clients and doing one-on-one sessions. Like, what else can we do to help heal the collective on a much bigger, grander, global scale? And so to be able to bring healers and light workers and inspiration people and conversations to a platform where people can access it openly and freely, to be able to listen and hear and maybe be inspired to create a change in their own lives, was one of the things that we talked about.
Totally, and connected on, for sure. And I think that's what's going on right now on the planet too, is that there's such a unique opportunity, I'll say, rather than divide, but opportunity to really step into your soul's gift. And we are being shown that there is more than ever the importance of using our voice and sharing it. And we are not for everyone, and that's the gift. If we were, we'd be Stepford wives, and that's not what we are. We're each unique, and we have these beautiful keys, codes, activations inside us when we connect to source, whatever source means. It could be God, it could be Allah, it could be Buddha, it could be whatever. But the more we connect to source and get guided to use our voice for the greater good of the planet and consciousness, then brilliant.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So the work that you're now doing is, you call yourself you call yourself the soul whisperer, or people have referred to you as the soul whisperer, as an intuitive healer. So talk to us about that, because that's kind of something which I had not, sort of this soul whispering, had not heard of prior to?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about this, and I won't go fully into it, but in the human design that we talked about, I'm a projector. So I bring people's energy into my system, and then I'm allowed to see and feel and experience things. On top of that, already being intuitive. And so oftentimes when I'm talking to someone and they have certain blocks, I could see what those blocks are and what's stopping them. It could be trauma. It could be sometimes people that have passed on pop in, oftentimes actually, and parents or different things that have come in that have blocked them. And so I'm able to see those, and because of it, ask questions that allow them to pull out information that kind of allows them to, I want to say, breathe. There's a sense where we get so tightly wound. This goes to what we talked about around nervous systems. Sometimes we're so tightly wound around all the trauma, or even if it's not our trauma, it's family trauma or DNA passed down, that we get challenged on how to be in the world. And so I'm able to see those things and bring them to the surface. And, along with shame, is the more you talk about things, the more they come out and go away. It lessens the charge in my eyes. And so I'm able to pull that stuff out and kind of whisper what their soul sees. And I see the light in everybody. I see, I don't want to say potential, because that sounds like a, type A, go at it sort of thing, but I see their soul's gifts. And for me, I always had the purpose of, if being a garbage collector was your dream, I would do everything in my power to make that happen. So I love being a catalyst and connector for people's dreams. And no dream is silly to me. They're all just unique and beautiful for that person.
Exactly. And, every dream, every thought, every idea that you have, it's a message. And I truly believe that when you receive an idea, if you have an idea, you're supposed to do something with that. But I think a lot of the time, the word that you used just then was shame. And a lot of the time, that shame that so many of us carry around, we don't believe that we have the ability or the capacity to actually bring that dream or that vision into reality. So working through that shame, I mean, you talked about psychic surgery, which I loved when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Actually, like you say, kind of pulling out this belief system psychically.
Definitely. So I spent some time with shamans, one based on Charlie's, bucket list, but also because I've always been curious. So in different parts of the world, and studied with a shaman for a bit. And so there is a way to pull out stuffed emotions through psychic surgery. And so when I'm working with clients, I see everything energetically. And I'm usually led to allow it to come out at a pace that feels right for them. But sometimes I need to go in and do surgery. And so I will, have them lay down, if it's via Zoom or in person, and just walk them through it. And we go to that spot and I have them describe it, what it feels like and what it seems like. And it's very clear to me, but it's important that they resonate with it. And then I'm able to go in, and one of the keys, I guess, and tools is removing stuff from people's system is really important, because it needs to be filled with something. So for example, years ago when I had to have a hysterectomy, if I filled it with more trauma, then that would have been just filled with more trauma. And so their part in it is to fill that spot in their system, no matter where it got stuck, with so much unconditional love as fast as possible. And it allows them to see the gift of their own internal healing that they can do for themselves too. So I do quite a bit of psychic surgery, although I usually try to guide people to it on their own. I feel like you might have this same mindset, but a healer is someone who, triggers within you your own ability to heal. And we're just the catalyst to activate either a word or a vibration or a touch.
100%. And I think when you're working with energy, which is what we're doing, then absolutely that. And, your work is very diagnostic by the sounds of it. So you really do. But whether you're diagnosing through the energy, through the vision, through what you see, and then guiding, you're able to then really do it in such a loving, gentle way. So the term psychic surgery sounds quite frightening to some people. No way, I'm not going there. But actually, because you do it with so much love and ease and grace, and because you're guiding your clients and trusting that they feel resonance with it before you go deeply into it,
Definitely.
slightly easier.
Yeah, and I would say that when the meditation prior to the session, I'm shown how to work with them. And some people are go in fast, get it out, like it's time, and others, and sometimes it's time because we talked about this too, disease is dis-ease. And it's to a point that if we don't move some energy out, then it's going to lead to other things that's not healthy in their body. And some are more like, okay, they just need to be heard. They need to be seen. They need to be validated and loved and just be a mirror to all the good they have, because the voice on their shoulder, whoever it came from, internally, externally, has gotten too big and needs to go away.
Yeah.
And so I am very strong with honoring how I'm being shown to work with people. And even during sessions, sometimes I'm in communication completely with them, but there's times where I've like gone a little bit too fast and someone will say like, whoa, I'm heating up. Am I supposed to be heating up? And I'm like, okay, well, let's just cool it down. And so I'm able to navigate based on what I see. Although my ultimate dream would just be to move stuff as fast as I can so the planet could be more,
just rip the plaster off.
Exactly. Okay, let's go forward, sort of energy.
But and again, the key there for me is replacing what you remove. So when you're working with the nervous system, when the nervous system is so traumatized and so overloaded, and that our minds can't cope with that, and so that will manifest in some physical form, to remove all of that negativity and that block, but to replace it with unconditional love, because I think that's what people forget, right? It's just going all the way back to that unconditional love, but love of self first. So remembering how much and how unique and special important you are, and coming from that place of filling yourself first before you're able to give to others.
So true. And it's sometimes I say it to clients and I feel like it feels sometimes like it's just buzzword bingo, but it's so true on the put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And I work with a lot of mothers who are super mothers and running businesses and CEOs. And yet at the same time, I'm like, hey, tell me about when you were in nature. Tell me when's the last time you took a bath and locked the door and turned on music. And, so self-care is not just once every, holiday. It's actually really important to be grounded first. So I will preach that from the mountaintops as long as I'm on the planet, along with most healers.
Right. And I think that's the thing, because the minute you put yourself first and start taking care of yourself first, then that real self-healing capacity can really kick in. Because if you're running around trying to please everybody else and filling everybody else's cup first, there is nothing to give yourself. And that self-healing mechanism, it can't start. Right. Your body cannot begin to do what it's supposed to do if it's not getting the right environment in which to do so. The rest and the time out and that sense of what's important to you and needed by you.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is that it gives permission to other people that are watching, to friends or to children, if it's a mom, of course they have them, or even to the husband. So it just like, I feel like if we were able to all, switch that, light switch on and really do it in a way that it's, aligned to the highest good of the individual, I think the planet would be amazingly heightened with higher vibration fast.
Well, that's it, just raising consciousness, which is what it all, it all comes around. And that's what I love about every single person I seem to speak to with regard to this. It's, it's coming back to self-love, unconditional love, acceptance of self, and raising our consciousness and awareness. And the minute we can start to do that and remove this space of living from the mind and the ego, and living from the heart and sense of self and being of service to people, then that's when everything really starts to shift. And I think we are getting there slowly.
We are. Well, I think we are. And I think one of the lessons that comes in to kind of like poke at us to make sure we are getting there is also that getting, feedback from some people that don't want us to change. And that sometimes is really painful. And yet it's such a good reminder, because we aren't for everyone. We are for the ones who, our soul tribe that is being called in, that wants a specific healing or is, matches vibration. Yeah. And so that's why I'm such a big fan of people really stepping into their healing modalities and fully owning their gifts, because we're at the perfect time on this planet to really do good. and
Exactly.
and with ease and grace and joy. It's, this, you working with clients, that amazing feeling of like the before and after energetically, it's just
No, it's euphoric. It's
right.
easy, right?
I was like, in my head, I was like, it's like a rainbow or a shooting star, but it's just like, it's so otherworldly to be
Yeah.
able to see that shift. So,
And that's it. And that's, why it's so imperative that people have access to all these different modalities, because, like I always say, where you are today on your journey isn't where you're going to be tomorrow or next year. And so every phase of you will require a different tool or a different technique or just a different time and space. And so if you're not aware of all these systems, then you can't even begin to start that healing process. But what does it, so when a client comes to you, what does the session, how does it typically work?
So currently what happens is they're quite long. So it's about a 3-hour session for the first one.
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty intense. I do a meditation prior, about 45 minutes prior, and just get my vibration to the highest and then pull their energy in and ask their higher spirit to be able to see, feel, hear, experience everything that's going on. And I just sit there and have my eyes closed and I write what I see, and I talk to their spirit quite a bit. Oftentimes, like I said, people that have passed on come in with certain messages if that's of significance. I don't like work with clients to talk to the other side, but it's just as if I'm open and it's something that will help their healing. And then I sit down with them via Zoom or in person, and we just talk, and I let them know everything I saw. I clear a stuffed emotion to start, and it's usually the overarching theme. And we just talk for usually about 45 minutes, and everything gets pulled up. I always say, like, whatever you're comfortable with, but the more you share, the better, because I see it all. So oftentimes I'll have clients who have had some sort of trauma, sexual trauma, or some sort of trauma. And sometimes it's not the right time. And I'm shown that that's there, but it's not the right time. But it is important for me to acknowledge it. And so I usually say, I'm going to ask some questions that might feel really personal, but I just want to, and they'll say yes, and emotion will come out. And it's like, perfect. When you're ready, then we'll talk about it. If not, just know that I see you, you're safe, you're loved, and you're protected. And then we go into a session of healing. And based on what I've seen, I usually open up their energy channels and remove everything that's not theirs to start, and then fill it back up with what we talked about, that unconditional love. In the shamanic terms, there's a thing called soul fragment, where basically could even be watching TV and see an accident on TV or something where pieces of you just fragment off. And so most of the times, people that I come across are just their energy feels, it's not quite Swiss cheese, but there's definitely holes in it where they fragmented off. So I bring all their pieces back together into the biggest capsule of energy that I can. And they're usually, in most cases, they pass out and go elsewhere. Sometimes it's too much for their system, but usually 3 to 5 days of integration, lots of water. And old memories come in, and they're funny. Sometimes they're from like kindergarten and turning and looking next to who you sat, like random stuff comes in, but it just is like kind of putting them back to their full blueprint at that time, at their highest potential of frequency that's available, and keys, codes, and activation. So that's
right. And I think that integration part is essential, and probably one of the most important is to go through all that 3-hour process with you, which is phenomenal. And then to probably feel raw and delicate and exposed, and probably emotions which probably are quite scary in some respects, but knowing that that is all part of that healing process, and then to allow that time to integrate.
Yeah.
So people have to be ready for it.
Oh, totally. And it's one of the things that when I do kind of an email combo to see when people are really excited about it, I'll say, like, let's look at your schedule. Do you have any big projects coming on? How can we have time where it's just you, because this will take place. That's the first session. Sometimes there's a couple of people I've worked with, 14, 16 times, and each one's different. And so then we're going really deep into kind of new keys and codes and templates, if you will. But for the most part, I'm holding space during that time too. And so I have their frequency with me, and I'm watching, and I'll do a check-in and
So that I was going to say was, is it just a one session then, or is it that so some people may find one session is enough and some may need to keep going for various.
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. It all depends on in some ways, what they're capable of expanding at that time. Sometimes they just need one session to get kind of a soul tweak back on track. I've had a few of those where it's just like they just need to be reminded and just be recalibrated, if you will, realigned. And then they're out doing their thing, and it's amazing. And there's some others where it's just it's nothing wrong. It's just more of the process is different for them. Their timeline is different. Right. And so it varies. Right now, that's how I work. My assumption is it'll shift at some point to be more container, where I can break it down into parts. So they're allowed to do, more I'm holding space through the quantum and do it in an energy way that aligns with everyone, so they can go at a timeline that works for them. Right. I think.
Do you find that depending on the level of trauma and the capacity of the nervous system, does that play into it at all, or really it doesn't matter the amount or the level of trauma that you've experienced in this or previous lifetime? It really just is up to the individual how quickly they respond.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, it does. I would say it's not the definition of the trauma, but it's how much they buried it down, how much, shame and stories. And, in lots of cases, in lots of cases, what I've seen is that, it's a sexual trauma, it's some sort of tragic trauma, but they're still beating themselves up for it, and they've done nothing wrong. So in some ways it's just realigning with that, and that sometimes takes a little bit more than just one session for that to really calibrate into a way that they can see that.
Well, when you've lived with it for years, months,
right,
decades, of course, it's it didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to disappear overnight. So that's when it comes to that whole part of being committed to your healing and knowing that it's
exactly
going to take time.
And yeah, sorry for interrupting. And I would say all these people that I work with too have this, every single one of them have these gifts to give the world. And so for me, I'm so honored to be able to help shift that so they can, lead their higher purpose. Yep. And so it's a beautiful thing. And sometimes sometimes it just needs to be, I always see it like this old coat you're wearing from kindergarten, and it just feels comfortable, but it's actually doesn't fit. And when you really look at it or stop, you're like, yeah, why am I wearing this? So the more that they're able to see that it doesn't need to be worn anymore, it doesn't define them, and allow their nervous system to get to back to the realignment, recalibration, and then they're able to choose whatever they want to wear. I
love that. Do you do a lot of work with couples? Do you have couples that come to you, or is that?
Yeah, I have worked with couples a lot in the past, and it's been a beautiful experience. It's been an interesting experience where I've had couple situations where it's been, I'm working with one, but the other one isn't comfortable to come to me, because I know that if it's usually in the male energy, I know if they were, I could do so much, shifting at one time, but I am able to pull in other energies by talking to their higher spirit and asking them if they, even if they're not in front of me to do energy work, I'm able to do it that way. And so I have shifted that way, but I have had a lot of couples where I'm doing sessions, separately. I have never done a session together, but a lot separately, and watch beautiful marriages, expand to be really, really lovely. And in most cases, what I've seen is that it's stories connected to parents or connected to a certain way of being raised. And, I think I have so much gratitude for my parents on how they raised me, even though there was times where it wasn't as, rosy and fun as I'd like to admit. And I just, not being a parent, there's just so much gratitude for doing the best we can with the tools we have. And as we're walking this planet now, it's even more of a gift to the parents that bring in children to be able to have all these tools like you do, to be able to shift them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we all know parenting doesn't come with a handbook, and it's one of the most challenging things, not only just I mean, there's so many topics around that, and, wanting to do the best, and the stories you carry with you from your childhood and your parents and all the belief systems. And it's interesting because a lot of the people that I've been talking to that offer these healing, they're doing so much more work with children these days.
Oh, wonderful.
Wow, which is amazing, because I think when you can start so much younger and you can help to reprogram and realign and change these belief systems, it only helps to grow into much more conscious adults.
Yeah, totally. I worked with, when I was living in Vietnam for a bit, I worked with a child who was 8, and it wasn't as much verbally. It was a little verbally, but it was more energetically. And his system had gotten overloaded and had some symptoms that were starting to show up. And it was really beautiful, because at the same time, there was a 80-year-old man that I was also doing some work with. So it was really fascinating for me to see that, it doesn't matter really the age. It just matters that it's time to remove the stuff that doesn't serve.
Exactly. And what is age at the end of the day? I mean, right? It's just a number. I mean, you have your chronological age, and then you have your energetic age, right?
Exactly.
So different ages that we can have as a human. So it's the same. At the end of the day, energy is energy, and working with one extreme to the other. But to be able to see that in correlation, I can imagine how beautiful that must have been from your perspective as a healer.
Yeah, I love that. I do. It's almost not science project, but it is fascinating to me to see how we also get stuck. The person who might be of a certain age could have something from childhood that made him stuck at a certain level of, and so that was fascinating to work with him, but also see that he was actually just this little boy who had trauma at the age of 11 that he wasn't able to release, and at the same time have this 8-year-old who is starting to have symptoms of energy that wasn't of the healthiest, and be able to give him tools and remove it. And it's beautiful. I love what I do for the fact that I can assist, and it's not helper syndrome. It's more that it's this beautiful gift of using some of the keys, codes, and skills that I've been blessed with to be able to help change the planet person by person for this moment.
I'm booking my session with you right now. Yes. Check. All of the above. I think it's so important to try these things, because you just don't know what you need and what's going to come up, and how you can grow and expand as a result of it. I mean, think it's amazing, and I'm just so in awe of what you're doing. And I can just feel, just through the conversation, just through your energy, how tuned in. What is it they say? Is it Abrahamics? Tuned in, tapped in, turned on, or something, I think it is. Right. And I feel that from you, really do. And so, what an amazing gift to share. So what do you, obviously you offer one-on-one sessions, so people post all your information onto the blog, your website, so people can connect with you on Instagram or through your website. They can reach out to you and have sessions with you one-on-one is the best way, right? But
for now, for sure. Yeah.
And then, and what about do you have homework that you give to your clients as a result? Is there anything that you can maybe share with the audience, which would be a tip or something that you feel works really, really well that people can implement into their daily practice to help?
Yes, definitely. It varies per person, but I would say one unique theme that shows up quite a bit is just auric cleansing, if you will. And so based on what goes on around the world right now, there's so much coming in that if we don't allow that energy to come off our system every day, then it starts to stack up, and pretty soon we get really confused of who we are, and it's actually not our energy. So I'm a very big fan of just, visually, when you take a shower at night, should you do that, or a bath, or anytime you're taking a shower, to just imagine that, it's just white healing or golden healing coming down, and just clearing out anything that is not yours and doesn't serve you to the highest potential. And along with just getting with nature, I have a couple plants in my sweet little place, but I also get on the beach every morning and put my feet on the ground and put my feet in the waves. And so connecting to nature. Obviously, journaling is a good thing. It's hard for some people to get going on that. So
that's a block as well, isn't it? It's like, how do you stop? Because you're already overanalyzing what you're going
to do. Well, it's and for me, I always have this funny thing where I get so much information in that I meditate every morning, but I can't read my writing. So it's like, it looks like, I one time was at a place in a coffee shop and I was just writing. And this guy is like, what is that? That looks like red rum, red, right? Like you couldn't. And I was like, I'm just processing information. So journaling's a great thing, but mostly just like really getting clear and clean. And I always say, if you can, right when you wake up in the morning, before you check your phone, before you do anything, if you can just put your hand on, I'm a big fan of like thymus, upper heart. And, I say womb, but it could be sacral solar, and just like connect there and just breathe there slowly. And, 4 breaths in, and then hold your breath. And then 4, exhale, or 4, and then hold, and just allow your heart to lead. And that is the key, because our brains are really good at taking over.
Yeah.
And with to-do lists and everything else. So the more you tap into your heart, it's the key. I mean,
that's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like that, if everyone was asking a question, the answer is always going to be love.
Love. Yes.
Love
to my own heart. Always
yeah.
Love will fix and heal everything.
Yeah. And start with self.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Trina, I mean, what a gift. Those are so many amazing tools that you've just given us right there. And so to be able to implement those and to take those away and just lead with love, but from yourself first, is just absolutely beautiful. So 100% grateful to having you here. And for people that want to come and feel that they really connected and enjoyed what they've heard from you and picked up on your amazing energy, then they can find you on all the show notes and all your contact information. And an absolute gift. So thank you so much.
And yes, and thank you for being Jessica. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, darling. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I truly hope that you enjoyed the show, and there is at least one thing that you can take away from today's episode that will help you build that sustainable healing toolkit. It would mean the absolute world to me if you would subscribe to the show, give it a 5-star review, and share this or any of the other episodes with somebody that you feel could really benefit by listening. I look forward to seeing you next time.